The Faith and Fishing podcast is sponsored by 413 Lure Company. 413 Lure Company is a family-owned and operated business that puts Christ first and does things the right way. Using really high-quality components, they make some really awesome spinnerbaits, buzzbaits, bladed swim jigs, and more in some really sweet color combinations. Check them out on Facebook to see what they can do and place your order today. Hey y'all, just wanted to take a brief minute to let you know about previous guest of the show, Jackson Orr's 3rd annual Kayak Anglers Together Can Help, or Catch, charity tournament. Registration is happening now through 5:59 a.m. Central Time on Friday, September 11th, and the registration fee is only $20, and Tourney X has waived the fee, which means that 100% of that $20 will go to a charity. Even if you can't fish the tournament, I encourage you to sign up by searching Jackson Orr or Catch on the Tourney X app and clicking the register button. And I will have a link to the registration in the show notes of this week's episode of the podcast to help you find it. The tournament will take place 6 a.m. Central Time on Friday, September 11th through 6 p.m. Central Time, Sunday, September 13th. And the top 6 anglers will be choosing a charity of their choice to donate a percentage of the total amount raised, and they will also be winning an awesome prize package from some of Jackson's amazing sponsors. I encourage you all to get behind this amazing and godly 17-year-old young man, so let's get out there and do it. Welcome to the Faith and Fishing podcast, where you get to hear all kinds of fishermen tell their stories and share their faith. I'm your host, Cam Steele. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing podcast. I'm your host, Cam, and as usual, I want to thank you all for listening. Just a quick reminder that this is the last week to sign up for Jackson Orr's 3rd annual Catch charity tournament. Jackson was a guest on the show early on in the podcast running and is still ranked in my analytics as one of the podcast's most listened to shows. You have until Friday morning, September 11th at 5:59 a.m. Central Time to sign up. It's only $20, and no matter who wins, it will be going to a good cause. Every time I have an interview with a guest, I always ask them before I get off the phone with them if there's anyone that they know who I should be reaching out to have them on the podcast. And I always am encouraging y'all to let me know who y'all want to hear from. And from both camps, there is always one name that has been mentioned more than any other fisherman. He's made a huge impact on so many others that he has fished with. He's the chaplain of KBF, was the winner of the 2016 KBF National Championship, and he's this week's guest, Mr. Matt Ball. Matt, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So to get us started, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about you and about what you do as the KBF chaplain.
Well, my name is Matt Ball. I live in Little Hocking, Ohio, which is southeastern Ohio, and I've been kayak fishing for quite a few years, many years, but fishing my whole life, and got into kayak fishing tournaments probably in around in about 2014-ish, somewhere around there, and then ended up winning, qualified for a national championship through kayak KBF, and won the national championship in 2016 as the first kayak bass fishing national champion. And from there, it's just kind of snowballed into a little bit of a sort of a semi. I still have a real job and still, but I do a lot of fishing, and I do a lot of tournament work. I do a lot of promotional stuff with different manufacturers, and I've really enjoyed a lot of that. But one of the things that I really value in this whole ride of kayak fishing that I've gotten into has been the platform that I've been able to share my faith and kind of be I don't like the word chaplain, but more of just a spiritual mentor to some people, that anybody out there that's in the kayak world, or anybody out there on social media really is where I get a good bit of reach. But through the kayak fishing and the tournaments and a lot of the the notoriety that the Lord's blessed me with through being a national champion and through being pretty well known in the kayak industry. It's been a great opportunity for me to share my faith and share the hope of Christ with others, and I've really enjoyed that. That's really been 100% the biggest, the most amazing part of what kayak fishing means to me. It's just really, the Lord's given me a lot of opportunities in this industry, and I don't ever forget that, and I really want to use it because I know where that blessing has come from. So.
Okay, absolutely. And just to get some backstory, you said that you've been fishing your whole life. What was it that got you started?
Well, I grew up in West Virginia, in a place just outside of a place called Grafton, West Virginia. But my dad has always fished. I mean, I've been fishing and being in outdoors and hunting and fishing my whole life. But fishing has been something that my dad was really big in, and all of our family vacations was fishing. My dad fished bass tournaments out of a bass boat. We would spend any weekend that we weren't that we were free, we were usually fishing somewhere or in the rivers or the creeks or the lakes around home, and I just kind of grew with me. As I got older, it is something that I wanted to be doing all the time, and a lot of my friends centered around the hunting and fishing aspect of my life, and that's who the people that I was drawn to that did those same types of things, and I've fished and hunted and been in the outdoors. It's just really one of my passions. It's where I love to be. I'm a country boy, I like being out in the outdoors. So, but I've fished my whole life, out of bass boats, kayaks, canoes, wading, everything. You name it, we've done it. I haven't done a lot of fly fishing, but it's just something I'd like to try someday, but I just never have. But, really, I'm a big river fan. I love fishing rivers. I love fishing the small streams. I love fishing a lot of the backwaters, the places that doesn't get a lot of traffic. Places that you can drag a kayak through the woods and end up in a stream, in a river or backwater somewhere that doesn't get a lot of pressure, and that's why kayak fishing for me has been really just a perfect fit for what I like to do. So
absolutely, that's awesome. So let's dive into the meat of stuff. In a nutshell, go ahead and let us know what you believe in.
I believe in Jesus Christ, that He's our Savior. He was sent to save us all from our sins, and we're all sinners saved by His grace, and I think that I believe that I believe in salvation through accepting of Jesus Christ. That's my faith, my belief, and what keeps me going.
Absolutely. And so far in the podcast, we really haven't gone into it much, but what do you mean by sinner?
Well, all of us fall short. All of us fall short of God's grace, that we don't deserve it. But as Christians, as a believer, when we fail, Christ died on the cross for our sins. We are sinners. And what I think that the thing that it means to me is, once you have accepted Christ as your Savior, and once you have, kind of went down that road and you've accepted Him in your heart, it changes the way you feel about sin. You're not going to quit sinning. We're sinners by nature, but what we are as Christians is we are forgiven, and what we are striving to do as Christians is live a better life, trying to steer clear of those things. And by building a relationship with God or with Christ, and through reading of the Bible and studying, you learn. You're training yourself. It's just like fishing. It's just like any technique. You know, you pick up a bait caster, and when you first learn it, you know, you're going to throw backlashes all the time. You know, you're throwing it out, and you're going to have backlashes. You're constantly picking out backlashes, but you're practicing. And you know, as a Christian, you're reading the Word. God changes your mind. You know, He starts working on you when the things that you didn't think about before. When you do those things, you know, you're more convicted of it, and he leads you through those kind of things and kind of turns the page for you. And it's just like anything, you know, it takes work on both sides. You know, you've got to work at your relationship and your Christian walk. You know, you can just say, Jesus, you know, forgive me of my sins, accept me into your, you know, I accept you into my heart. But when the change comes is when you start building on that relationship with Him, and you are, you're fostering that relationship with Him, not just a believer. You're a practicing of improving your Christian life by following His Word and praying to Him and just including Him in everything that you do. And when you do that, it really helps, you know, form the new you, I guess you should say, when you're a new Christian, or just, but like I say, we're all sinners, you know, no one's perfect except for Christ. So, that's the beauty of it. By being He forgives us of our sins. We just have to ask Him into it. And that door's there. We just have to walk through it.
Absolutely. So, if you would, tell us a story of you walking through that door. What was it that God used to change your mind, or did you even need any kind of transformation
for me,
at all?
I've had that talk with a lot of people before, and, you know, I guess, I don't know if it's, I mean, it's a blessing that I don't have an earth-shattering moment in my life, where, you know, I was far away from, you know, I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in, you know, with parents that, you know, I grew up in Sunday school. I grew up, you know, granted, yes, I strayed and did things I shouldn't have, but I always knew the way I was raised, you know, what the Bible said, what I should be doing. So I never really had you know, where I was, you know, out on the streets or, you know, recovering alcoholic or anything like that. But what I've noticed for me is it's been more of instead of a sprint to finding my faith, it's been a marathon, you know, by growing up as a Christian, and by growing up, at times it might have become just second nature. And it really, growing up, maybe I didn't feel that connection. But as I got older and as I start dealing with things in my own life and raising a family and having a job and debt and troubles and sicknesses and all the disappointments that can come in life, learning how to lean on Him is when I've really come through that really closeness to in my faith. So it wasn't a light switch for me. It was more of a pinpoint of light that I always had in my life that I just kind of kept working towards. And then the more the longer I went in this journey. Now granted, I'm very, there are moments in your life that really bring you closer to Him. And, you know, when you lose somebody, or when you at birth, I've got 4 kids, you know, the birth of a child, and, you know, just seeing all the wonderful things that He's done in your life, in my life, and also seeing how He has brought me through a lot of difficult times in my life. So, you know, that's kind of my testimony. It's been more of a marathon than it has been a sprint, you know, or fallen away and then just found. I've just slowly over my life have just slowly grown closer and gotten a better relationship with Him through just staying, into the faith. So.
Absolutely, that's awesome, and I hope that you I hope that your story encourages others who feel that they don't necessarily have a story or a groundbreaking moment or anything like that. That their story can still inspire and still be a strong tool to lead people to Christ, and also to encourage others who have grown up in a Christian home and have been blessed enough to grow up with that and still be able to feel like they can contribute with their story.
Yeah, and that has been a tough one for me. I don't want to make it sounds bad to say it, but sometimes you think, boy, I wish I had a great testimony. I guess everybody does, to the right people. My story is going to speak to certain people that are in the same situation as me, whereas, they've never, and that's not to say that down the road I might have a great testimony, but whatever the Lord's got in store for me, I don't know, but I trust in Him, and I trust that whatever He's got coming is going to be something that I can handle through Him. And just, you got to keep that relationship going so that when those times come, you're ready to lean on Him. And a lot of times I think a lot of people only look towards Christ in the hard times. And what I'm trying to focus a lot on in my life now is really not forgetting about all the blessings and praising Him during all the blessings, because I've got a lot of blessings in my life. I'm not going to lie. I mean, things have been good for me and my family, and that's not to say that tomorrow something tragic could happen, and that's when your faith is tested. And I just hope and pray that those times don't come, and but if they do, that I'm ready to lean on Him and take all my time, my relationship with Him, and use that.
Absolutely. So, what does your faith mean to you?
Oh, it means everything. Without faith, it's, if you look at this world, it's hopeless in a lot of ways without a meaning. Everybody, and nowadays everybody's looking for a purpose or a cause. Well, the cause of Christ is really the ultimate cause, because it's never changing. It's solid. It's not wavering. So my faith means everything to me. Without faith, I'm lost. Without faith, it's darkness to me. If I didn't believe that there is a God that loves me and that has created me and is looking out for me and that has a plan for my life, that would put a lot of pressure on a person that doesn't believe, because they've got to think, well, everything that comes in my life, I have to make happen. That's a lot of pressure. But for me, there's still a lot of pressure in my life, but that is me more putting it on myself than just, trying to trust in what the Lord's plan is, and trying to listen and watch and learn and read in His Word and try to make the best decisions in my life as possible that go along with His plan. And the only way that you can follow His plan is if you learn to have a relationship with Him. So, there are days that, honestly, there are days I go and I may not even think about God. And those are the days where you realize after the end of the day, you're like, crap, I tried to make a lot of things happen today, and look where it got me. I'm depressed, or I'm upset, or I'm mad, or, when you try to keep Him in the forefront of your mind and your faith, and just talk to Him throughout your day, just in your mind, you don't have to sit down and, go into prayer. It just, basically, as you're going through your day, just kind of keeping aware of the fact that everything that's going on in your life, he's got control of. You've just got to let him have that control. When you start to take that control and you take the wheel, Jesus, take the wheel. That's what we need to do all the time. So that's what my faith is. That's my compass that I have to go by. And there's a lot of times I end up heading the wrong direction, but that compass is always pointing in the right direction if you just believe in it, so.
Absolutely. And to transition things back towards the water a little bit, are there any specific times you can think of out on the water that have affected your faith in any way?
When I'm on the water, there's been, no, not specifically. I guess there's been a lot I feel very close to him while I'm on the water. One of my favorite times it's actually, this is going to sound weird, but one of my favorite times and one of the most anxious times that I have as a tournament angler is tournament morning. And, let's say first cast is going to be at 6:00 that morning. I get up early, I get to the ramp, I'm ready to go, and I've got my gear ready. We launch our kayaks about a half hour before first cast. A lot of times you can get to your spot and you're just sitting there in the stillness, in the pre-dawn, with nothing but your thoughts. And what I've found is those thoughts can really wreck you in a day. But if you turn your thoughts to him and sit back and just look around you and listen and just praise him for what he's got and what he's given you to do that day, and the fact that you're setting out in a kayak on the water fishing in his creation, and there should be no anxiety in that. There shouldn't be. So as a tournament angler, we have that anxiety level, ready for the first cast, ready for, you're wanting to do well, and you're wanting to, catch the biggest fish and the all that. And all your preparation is wound up into that 15-minute moment before you're making that first cast, and it can just wreck your brain. So what I like to do is just sit there and I just pray, and I'll just I talk to him. I just sit back and I enjoy it. And I'm like, listen, the Lord has given me the opportunity, the blessing to be out here on this water, fishing, making not a living, but making a fairly decent income by fishing at times. And what a blessing. What a blessing that is. And to sit here and think that I'm going to have a horrible day if I don't catch any fish, because you can steamroll out of control really quick on a bad day of fishing. But if you just focus on the fact that that's really not what's important, it's the fact that you are getting a chance to spend it in his creation, and how you handle victory or success on the water just shows a lot about your faith. That's one of the biggest things that that I kind of lean on in the tournament world, because I take this fishing very seriously when I'm on the water. I'm very competitive. I want to win. But that doesn't mean that I want to win when I'm on the water, but I also want to enjoy my time on the water. So that's where my faith comes in a lot of times, is because I'm sitting there, Lord, I'm not going to lie. There's times I've prayed, Lord, just let me have one more good fish. It's all I need. When in all reality, that may not be what he's got in your plan. What he might want to see is, how are you going to handle this failure today? How are you going to walk away from this and not having a limit when you walk out at the end of the day on this tournament? Or, and that happens more often than not, it's fishing. You're catching fish. So a lot of times how my faith helps me handle the failures in a lot of ways, because there's a whole lot more failures in fishing than there are successes. And so that's, I guess I'm kind of rambling here, but your original question was time on the water that affected my faith. I think all the time on my water, if I really let myself focus on it, is part of my faith is by, trusting in him and not letting it become something that I'm worshiping. I'm not out there as this isn't the most important thing in my life. My faith, my family, that is the most important thing in my life. Just the fact that he's allowing me to be out there and doing this is sometimes what brings me back to reality when things aren't going well, or things are going, or when things are going well. You think, man, I did this. No, I did put the work in, but the Lord's given me an opportunity here to have some success. Next tournament, he's going to probably use me as an example of how to gracefully handle defeat. So, that's kind of what I look at, and it's what I try to do. I will say I do it all the time, but that's what I try to do. So.
For sure, absolutely. All right, so what fishing story or memory means the most to you?
Well, I'm going to go back to one of the most incredible moments in my fishing career. There's a lot of memories that really, come back to me, but one of my fondest is probably winning the national championship and walking up on the stage and knowing that out of, over 300 people, I was the best angler that day. And that was, and then the outpouring of love and support from my friends and family and the members of the fishing club that I was with at that time, still am with, but Mountain State Kayak Anglers, it was like a big family, and having them be so excited for something that you did and you were successful in. And so that's always going to be right up there. But honestly, as far as moments in my fishing career, moments on the water, anytime I get to spend on the water with my family, my father, my kids, my wife, anybody, all those moments are just special to me. When my kids are catching good fish, or, when I'm out fishing with my dad, who I learned everything from, he's who I learned how to fish from, and he still kayak fishes, and he's still one of the best fishermen I know. So being out there, those are the kind of memories that I love about fishing. So there's not one specific, other than maybe that moment of winning the national championship a few years back. That was pretty special.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so this next question, whenever I first started the podcast, I asked my fishing buddy to come up with a question for me. I didn't know what he was going to come back with, but this is what he came back with. So whenever you're out fishing with somebody, what is your typical conversation centered around?
And life, really. I love to talk with others. In a kayak, a lot of times you're not actually sitting with somebody, but we still fish, in close proximity a lot of times just for fun. But when I'm out on the water with good friends and family, just talking about life, I like to talk. So whatever's going on, I like to find out. I like to hear other people's, what's going on in their lives, and, just hear how life's, what's going on in their lives. I just love to talk about that. Don't necessarily a lot of the conversation is right along with, how are we going to catch fish in these conditions, breaking down the water. Depending on who I'm fishing with, the conversation might be, hey, we're not catching anything right now. What do you think? What are you doing? Or what should we do to maybe try to get a better bite here? Or what, with these conditions, should we be fishing deeper or shallower? Or should we be looking for rock or wood or, ledges or whatever? That's a lot of the conversation. But if I'm out with the kids, it's just getting involved in what their life's going, what are they doing today? Not really digging into their lives, because a lot of times they just want to have fun. They want to talk to you and just talk about whatever's going on and be silly. I have a blast just talking with people out on the water. And so it's not a specific conversation, but it's kind of a ballpark, just whatever's going on in life or whatever it is to try to catch more fish.
Absolutely. All right. So what life advice do you wish that you had been able to start off with?
What advice for fishing?
So what life advice?
Oh, life advice. Man, life advice. And there's so many things I wish I'd learned a lot sooner. Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I'm not really sure what my life advice. Build your relationship with Christ is got to be the most important. But another one that I would highly recommend to anyone is just find you someone that I found my perfect match in my wife, and building a life with her. So when you're younger kids out there looking for a spouse down the road, man, look for somebody that shares the same values and that shares the same focus as you, and that you feel like you can build a great future with Christ as the head of that relationship, because that's what my marriage has been built on, and that is what's gotten me where I'm at now, and that is having a strong Christian woman that is my wife, that I look up to as a Christian, and that we have tackled life as parents of 4 kids together, really relying on our faith, to trusting in Him to lead us throughout all the different things that go on in life, which there are so many of them, but finding a partner that shares that faith and that helps, someone you can lean on and build off of. That is really one of the most important things that has happened in my life is meeting the woman that I married, Tricia, and a wonderful Christian woman that we have built a great life with.
That's awesome. And so now I'm going to ask about the fishing advice. So what fishing advice do you wish you had been able to start off with?
Man, well, I'm going to take it onto the kayak side. Okay. Fishing advice, I really don't know the exact, really fishing advice is depending on what kind of fishing you're doing. But as far as kayaking, I'm going to go on that, because that's really a heart of what I do in fishing, is the kayak side of it. And that is, try out a lot of kayaks before you buy one. One thing that I see in a lot of, kayak fishermen, they start out with you don't have to find the highest dollar kayak out there, but what you need to do is get in a few of them, borrow some, or go to some demo days and paddle some kayaks, because comfort is key in fishing out of a kayak. You're not going to be successful fishing out of a kayak if you can't sit in it for very long. You need to have a kayak that you can move around, have your gear in and move around and cast and maneuver in. So find a kayak that fits your budget, that, a lot of used kayaks out there that are going to be a lot better than a lot of the box store kayaks that a lot of people start in, that are going to be way more comfortable, and you're going to like it more. So I wish I'd have bought a better kayak right off the bat than when I first bought my first kayak that was a, $100 sit inside kayak but it got me started, and it started that passion of kayak fishing and realizing what I can do with it. And it just grew from there. So, finding a kayak that is comfortable is a big key. And the other thing is getting a good paddle. Having a good lightweight paddle is going to be a big key when you're starting out kayak fishing, because you're going to be doing a lot of fishing with a rod in one hand and that paddle in the other, and you're going to be using that paddle with one hand a lot of times when you're fishing. Normally when you're fishing, you've got fishing rod in one hand and you're still trying to maneuver your boat with one hand, a nice lightweight paddle is going to go a long way in that. So,
absolutely, I agree 100%.
A good PFD, because that is what you got to, that you got to wear a good PFD when you're out kayak fishing, any on the water.
Absolutely. So yeah, I have a very similar story with my first kayaks. I started out in one of the Walmart Sun Dolphin. And so I have a very similar story. And I didn't learn my lesson the first time. So I'm on my fourth kayak in 5 years or something like that. But the one I have now, I really, really like it. So.
Oh yeah. And a lot of people, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Man, you got a lot of money in that kayak, and I can go to Walmart and get one, and for $100 I can have every." Yeah, you can, you really can. And I encourage people to get into, if that's what they have to do to get into it, do it. But try them out a little bit, because there's a lot of people get in those and then don't go back in them very often because they're not sized right for. Some people, there's some pretty big guys out there getting in these little boats that really would have been better off, maybe browsing some one ads and finding a little bit better kayak suited for them or whatnot. But
I wasn't too far from sinking that little 10-foot boat.
Yeah. So, no, that's one thing. I mean, and as far as just fishing, it's just like I was talking with your Faith. When you start fishing, just soaking up all the information that you can, learning, being a student of fishing. Once you start fishing and you realize, man, I like this. There are so many resources out there to learn about techniques, and there's so many good people that I would recommend. There's a good friend of mine, Gene Jensen. He's one person I'd recommend to anybody watching his videos if they wanted to get into fishing, because, he shows people how to do it. Chad Hoover has a ton of great content out there on how to kayak fish and great tips. There's just so many good anglers out there that's putting content out on YouTube. There's a lot of junk out there, but there are some really good, there's some good ones out there. And, there's just a lot of resources. Read, if you're going to fish a body of water, research that body of water. I guarantee you, if you get on the internet and start typing in any lake you want to go to in the country and just start going through all the different searches on that water, you're going to learn a lot about the water. You're going to find pages on forums where people have fished there at different times of the year. And, it'll just make you a better angler. And when you're successful at angling, it keeps you in it longer. Because nobody likes to be a complete failure at something. You want to succeed when you're doing this. So the more effort you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. Just like your faith, you got to put that effort into it. You got to put that work in. And when you're talking about putting work in for fishing, if it's something you enjoy, it's not work. It's enjoyable. I love to go out and just sort through my tackle.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of look at my tackle and think, okay, I'm going to fish this body of water. What should I tie on? If I'm going to take 4 poles with me tomorrow, what are the 4 best lures that I could put on for tomorrow? And just thinking through that, that's kind of what my mindset is on fishing most of the time. It's preparing to go fishing. Once I hit the water, then it's all reactive. What are they doing right now? Most of the work comes in before you get there, wondering, okay, here's what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. Here's what the temperature is. Here's what time of the year it is. The fish should be, from what I've read, the fish should be, everything I've learned about bass, they should be in this vicinity. So looking at Google Earth and Google Maps, and this is where I want to start my search. And because in a kayak, unlike a bass boat, you can't cover a whole lake. You've got to pick an area and dissect it. You don't have the ability to travel all over the lake. Now, you can with a lot of the new motors. I've used a Torpedo with my boat, but that's great, but a lot of people don't have that. So, you've really got to study maps and the water and what's going on that time of the year. And that's where you make your best guess and you just go fishing, and then go from there.
Absolutely. And so I know with KBF you are mainly a bass guy, but is there a particular fish that you haven't caught yet that sits at the top of your bucket list?
Oh, there's all kinds of them. I've got some really good friends that are got some big saltwater fishing resumes, and I am dying to get down towards Louisiana and do some redfish fishing, and heading to Florida and fishing for some tarpon sometime. Just a lot of the saltwater scene is something that I don't live near it, so I don't get a chance to do it a lot, and that is something I really look forward to doing. I'm afraid, I've caught a lot of the freshwater fish. I've never targeted muskie, but I've caught quite a few. They're amazing. My absolute favorite thing to fish for is smallmouth bass in rivers, period. If I had to go fishing every day and could choose, I'd go fishing for smallmouth bass on a river. Followed closely by smallmouth bass on Lake Erie. Those would be my two. Smallmouth bass are just something that I love. I love to fish for them. Really big, where the area I live in, that's really more of we have a better chance of catching nice smallmouth than we do nice largemouth in my area. So that's kind of why. But, I guess if I lived where there was 10-pound largemouth, pretty common, I'd be probably pretty psyched about that, but I don't live in that area. So.
All right. And what about a particular fishing spot? Is there one that sits at the top of your bucket list?
Well, I tell you what, it's going to be a river. One of my favorite places of all time, and I basically have pictures of myself as a baby there. It's the South Branch of the Potomac River in West Virginia. It is one of the most beautiful places to fish. It's got a lot of fish. It's got some good fish. It's over near Romney, West Virginia. Place called they call it the Trough. It's just a beautiful float through the mountain of just a big valley you're going through. It's beautiful water. Love fishing the South Branch of the Potomac. But this past about 2 weeks ago, I spent some time on the Susquehanna River up near Harrisville or Harrisburg, PA, and I got to say. That was some pretty incredible fishing, and it's some beautiful scenery up there too. So that's another one. Really, all the rivers. You've got the New River in West Virginia that I dearly love spending time on. The Greenbrier River, the Susquehanna River in PA. There's just all kinds of them, and I love fishing for big smallmouth in Lake Erie. So out of a kayak, it's a lot of fun.
All right, absolutely. So we're going to jump into a segment here that we call What's Your Favorite? It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to ask you your favorite in a few different categories. And to start it off with, do you have a favorite scripture?
Yeah, I do. I've got a few, but probably one thing that really helps me in my faith is it's a verse, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And, that just really, it just speaks to, if you read on, that's verse 11. Actually, let me bring it up here. Let me find it. So for I know I have plans for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And then it goes on verse 12. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me. When you seek me with all your heart, I will be found to you. So no matter what we got going on in our lives, we know that the Lord has our best interest at heart. So whatever, that just really gives me comfort a lot. and it's just that verse really just speaks to me. And another verse, and this is a pretty popular one with a lot of people, but I have it written on my, we call them hog troughs. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's what we measure our fish with. On the bump board on that, I've got Philippians 4:13, which I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Well, what I love about that is the whole story of that is it's not so much, everything I ask for, Christ is going to give me. What it is that whole story is with that verse is no matter what, through victory and defeat, failure, success, He's with you. So those are the kind of things. That's what that just speaks a lot to me. How are you going to handle success? How are you going to handle failure? Well, through Him, you can handle it all. You just have to lean on Him, and that also goes along with the other verse I mentioned. So that's just, I like having hope.
Absolutely.
Because our world's so full of just horrible things nowadays that knowing that there's hope in Him is just really the most refreshing thing that you can have, and that's what keeps me going.
For sure. And what about a favorite Bible story?
Of course, like I say, I love the underdog stories. The David and Goliath and Gideon, all those kind of things. So those are probably, I'd say probably story of Gideon and, how he's the least obvious choice to lead an army and just how the Lord has basically supplied everything for him to be successful. And, he didn't want that. He didn't feel worthy of that. The same way, David and Goliath, the underdog story. So that's kind of what I like.
Absolutely. So, I believe you've already answered the question, what is your favorite fish to fish for with the smallmouth bass?
Yep.
What would be your favorite fish to catch?
Smallmouth bass.
All right.
big smallmouth bass. Now, I would love to catch tarpon, one of those great big giant tarpons. Those things, that would just be incredible.
Yeah, that's one of
down in Florida.
That's one of the many that sits on my very big bucket list also. So
yeah,
for sure. And what about your favorite fish to eat?
Long John Silvers or Captain D's. Not a big fish eater, to be honest with you. I like deep fried trout. Batter fried trout during trout season. When a lot of the guys I work with go to the mountains and trout fish, they'll have fish fries. I can put that away. So yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. While we're on the subject of food, what about your favorite fishing snack?
Every time I head out to the water, I've got a bag of beef jerky, and I've got a Nutri-Grain granola bar, oats and honey. I throw those two things in my bag, and I usually carry a Cliff Bar, peanut butter Cliff Bar. And then I'll throw 4 bottles of water and a couple Gatorades under the seat, and I go. And I very seldom stop to eat when I'm fishing, especially a tournament. I got to force myself to even stop and get a drink during the day, and that's bad to do. I don't recommend that, but a lot of times I'll fish halfway through the day and realize I haven't even stopped to take a drink. So yeah, I get pretty focused when I'm on the water.
And is there a particular brand or flavor of beef jerky that you like?
Whatever I can get on sale at Dollar General when I'm getting I'll run through Dollar General because there's one on every corner of every street in America. So that's usually where I get my snacks.
I hear you. And I won't ask for any GPS coordinates or secret spots or anything, but what's your favorite body of water to fish on?
I really love going to Lake Erie. That's not a river. I love Lake Erie. I love fishing. I love taking my electronics and finding those fish and fishing for smallmouth with drop shot and, blade baits and that kind of stuff. The fight of those deep, big football size, 5-pound smallmouth in Lake Erie are just like, I love
it. I hear you. And last but not least, what's your favorite time of year to fish?
It's definitely going to have to be spring. Unfortunately, I don't get to fish as much in the spring as I'd like to with my real job. We usually have I work at a chemical plant. We have our shutdown every year in the spring, so that kind of really cuts into some of my really good quality spring fishing time. But I'd say the following right close behind it would be fall. The only reason I wouldn't say fall first is because I'm a big bow hunter and I love to be in a tree stand in the fall. So I kind of have conflicting interests when the leaves start to turn. But man, there's some incredible fishing in the fall that you don't have as many people out. Fall's a great time if you can pass up going sitting in a tree stand for chasing big deer for the day. Fishing's really probably one of the best times in the fall, late fall.
Absolutely. And whenever you said spring, what's your favorite, pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn?
I like pre-spawn. I hate fishing the spawn. I'm not very good at it, and everybody's out there doing it. So I love pre-spawn. I love getting them when they're feeding up to spawn, moving in. When you can find them on secondary points coming off the main lake when it's first starting to warm up, that is absolutely when I love to fish them. So, spawn's great, but it's frustrating and it's hard to do out of a kayak sometimes. A lot of people thrive, do really well at bed fishing. With a kayak, we're not taking them off the water, so it's not as big a deal to bed fish. You're catching them and putting them right back in at the bed. But I just don't do very good at it, to be honest with you. I don't have the patience to bed fish a lot of times.
Yeah. And here where I fish, so much of it is like chocolate milk colored water, so it's hard to find them anyways. That's
the way it is. Where I live, it's all muddy all the time, but I really probably fish more traveling than I do at home anymore because of all the tournament schedules and traveling and everything. I'm traveling to different bodies of water across the country to fish these tournaments, and that's where I spend 4 or 5 days in a row fishing hard. So I don't do as much fishing locally as I have this year with all the COVID going on. I've done a lot of fishing local with, but normally I'm fishing, wherever the next tournament is where I'm spending some time, that week, few days before the tournament, I'm fishing hard,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man, well, we're going to start wrapping things up. If you would, let us know, what do you have upcoming for you?
My next tournament was going to be this weekend up at La Crosse in La Crosse, Wisconsin on the Mississippi River, but just some other things a little bit more important this week at home, so I'm going to skip that one. But I'll be hitting. We're having a KBF is having an event on Lake Erie, not really on Lake Erie, but in the harbors. Some of the harbors, leading into Lake Erie, they're having a KBF 2-day event here in the next few weeks. This coming weekend, there is one of my local clubs I'm in is West Virginia Kayak Anglers. They're having one, not too close to me, but not too far from where I grew up, and I'm trying to see if I can work it out to where I can make it there to fish that one. But got the national championship got moved. Normally we fish the national championship in April every year, but it got moved to October due to all the COVID. So that's going to be a big one at the end of the year, and I'm trying to qualify for the Hobie BOS Series Tournament of Champions at the end of the year. I've got 2 events in, and I've got to get another event under my belt to even have a chance at qualifying for that. But that's high on my list to try to make that event, and then finishing out the KBF schedule for the year, and then also And there's so many options I've been fishing this year. I fish KBF. I fished the Hobie series. I fished the Bass series, which was a new series this year. I fished one of them, and of course they've had to cancel a couple of them, so those are going to be rescheduled. So it's been a crazy year. Everything was planned out at the beginning of the year. I had a plan. I had a schedule. I knew where I was going to fish, and then this all happened. So new plans have to be made.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have any sponsors or supporters you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah, man, I want to thank. There's so many companies that have really supported me. Jackson Kayak. I've been with Jackson Kayak since the beginning. Fishing Online is the online fishing retailer that it's not too far from me. It's kind of local in Pennsylvania here. Great company, great small people, great shipping, everything. They've taken great care of me, and I think the world of them. Torqeedo is my motor for my kayak, and they're an excellent sponsor. Bending Branches Paddles has been with me from the beginning. NRS gear keeps me safe with my PFD and all my clothing and keeps the sun off of me. Man, NRS makes some incredible gear. Yak Attack, basically I can take any boat out there and outfit it to make it a great fishing kayak with Yak Attack. Put a Torqeedo and a bunch of Yak Attack accessories on about any kayak, and you can have you a pretty good fishing boat out there. And then 13 Fishing has been the rods and reels I've used since the year I won the national championship. Dakota Lithium is the batteries that support me. Lowrance, my electronics. Gerber Gear, it's been a bit of sponsor of mine for a while now, and there's more. I'm sorry, but just I've been blessed. I've been really blessed with a lot of companies that I use and believe in, and it's just been awesome, to say the least. So I've been blessed with a lot of great opportunities.
Awesome. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you or follow you on social media, how do they find you?
Yeah, you can look me up on. I've got some stuff out on YouTube. A lot of instructional videos on different installs and stuff for Jackson Kayaks and Torqeedo. Matt Ball Outdoors on YouTube. Look for me there. You can find me on Facebook at Matt Ball. On Facebook, that's just Matt Ball, and then M-Ball T-Ball on Instagram.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best, man.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you having me, and God bless. Thanks for doing this.
Again, I want to give a big thank you to Matt for coming on the show and talking with us about faith and fishing. I'll leave links in the show notes to Jackson's tournament, show sponsor 413 Lure Company, and of course, how to follow Matt. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Don't forget to tell me who you want to hear from next. Thanks again for listening. Y'all take care, and God bless. Thanks for listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. If you like this episode, please give it a rating, a review, and make sure to subscribe on whatever app you're listening to so you never miss an episode. You can follow the podcast on social media at facebook.com/faithandfishingpodcast and Instagram at faithandfishingpod. Special thanks and a big shout out to our show sponsor 413 Lure Company, to Jonathan Enthalancy for helping me write, play, and record the music for the show, and to Tyler Worrell, the graphic designer behind our amazing logo. If you have any questions about faith, I encourage you to contact a pastor in your community. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, get out there and catch some fish, and I will catch you on the next episode.